And just like that, hang on a minute. What are you doing here?
Hello, we are Tombstone Studios, and welcome to our Sprint 1 devlog for Robes, Wrinkles and Magical Evils. Robes, Wrinkles and Magical Evils, or RW&Me for short, is a 3D, first-person dungeon crawler set in medieval times that blends comic book aesthetics and comedic gameplay within a serious environment. It was really important to establish the art style that we were searching for early in development so that we could ensure consistency throughout the project. This entailed many iterations, and the game had gone through various art directions between pre-production and our first sprint. Fortunately for the team, Sprint 1 revolved around gameplay loops, something we had been proactive in establishing during pre-production, so we were in a fairly strong position. Our short loops concerned encountering, dealing with and progressing past enemies, the medium loop encountering challenges and deciding/implementing approaches to deal with them, and the long loop, the overarching reclimb of the tower the player was cast to the bottom of and their eventual reclamation of their position. First priority of the sprint was the revision of our basic player movement and enemy AI, specifically enemy patrol routes and combat. Enemy characters already moved in predetermined routes within our external test area, but further programming and AI modifications were made for enemies to actively target the player, as well as the addition of a simple animation to portray the enemy attacking the player. Adding spherical colliders and rigid bodies to our enemy models allowed us to introduce one of our most desired features, ragdolling. We wanted ragdolling present as it causes chaotic physical reactions upon enemy deaths, and within confined areas of a dungeon it would exaggerate the comedy and offer levity in contrast to the serious dungeon setting. With the player character, ragdoll physics, basic enemy movement, and combat established in engine, we needed a way for the player to interact with the assets inside our grey boxed build, so began the development of the core gameplay ability, telekinesis. Liam programmed the ability so that assets could be levitated and propelled, and with that working successfully, our main method of interactivity was solidified. After concept and creation of UI elements such as flight, necromancy and health and mana bars, Liam and Aaron were able to program these features in-game. Character models such as knights and skeletons were created during this phase, and with each of these fundamentals in place, Aaron began development of the dungeon environment, to which code and temporary assets were transferred. George was instrumental in creating textures for this environment as well as relevant objects to breathe life and interactivity into the space. As the dungeon layout expanded, enemy routes were determined to patrol the space, but more importantly, the player's path. Enemy and player damage functionality was added, which tied to our game over state, and health and damage stats were applied to objects which could be interacted with through telekinesis. Object models were continually contributed by the group throughout this process to add variety to the dungeon. The final addition of Sprint 1 were visual cues, an accessibility feature which highlights objects the cursor hovers over and clarifies distance from which objects can be levitated. Since playtesting RW&Me between peers, members of staff and the Epic Games staff, playtesters have commonly said that they would like visual cues in-game to represent which objects telekinesis can be used on, and perhaps the introduction of on-screen prompts, the latter being something we are wary of due to the diegetic approach we are promoting. There have been conflicting opinions. One playtester said that the game was instantly fun, whereas another bluntly said it was a bit boring, and that there wasn't enough challenge or threat present. A valid comment, but something we had to consider to reach a happy medium. Reduction of scope and the polishing of our current assets, mechanics and play space were also recommended by the Epic Games staff, ensuring that we capture audience retention within the first few moments of them playing our game. Addressing the feedback received regarding the reduction of scope, the team is in the process of revising the game's initial tutorial area to inform players of the control scheme, the functionality of their abilities, and gradually introduce an incremental learning and difficulty curve as more enemies and puzzles are encountered in the following rooms, simultaneously, hopefully resolving comments concerning the current lack of challenge or difficulty. Visual effects are a major feature which we intend to implement heading into Sprint 2, acting as another tool capable of pleasing playtesters who requested more visual cues and on-screen prompts, answering their requests in the diegetic fashion that we want to continue developing our game in. Thank you for following the progress of Robes, Wrinkles and Magical Evils, and we look forward to updating you on the development process in our next devlog video.